This episode of RPMMO Radio is brought to you by all our amazing and generous Patreon donors. Visit us at patreon.com/RPMMORadio to help support the show. It is also brought to you by...
Do you hate everything in the modern age? The modern games like this, just Apex, Fortnite, and their Elder Mind Scrolls they just confuse and anger you. I mean, like, who really needs a Lady Giga anything? Seriously, you're just making up words now. That's why I invite you to Shady's Acres Technological Retirement Home. Nothing is larger than a mega-what's-it, and all our internet runs through good old reliable AOL. It's the only internet I've ever needed. And, as I talking about? Oh yeah, it's all anyone should ever need. Yes. If you want a pet at Shady Acres, we got all the Tamagotchis you could want, and it's virtually like you just virtually clean up after them. It's quite good. It's a face space, forget it. We don't do that newfangled stuff. We got forums run on the only website what matters is your GeoCities. Okay, can you talk about the latest movies there, like the Kindergarten Cop and the Time Cop and the other good one, the RoboCop, and then we got Beverly Hills Cop. We gotta talk about them a lot and make every point you want to over breathtaking MIDI music playing in the background, and you got the GIFs swirling around. So come with me to Shady Acres Technological Retirement Home and doodads but no, don't do it when Dallas is on. I need to find out what who shot JR. Columbo. Old people. Shady Acres Technological Retirement Home. When back in my day is today.
You're listening to RPMMORadio.
Does internet porn know you're cheating on it?
Where entertainment and roleplay in MMORPGs have little hybrid mutant babies.
Make a note of this. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your whole family.
And now, here's your hosts, Ashen Phoenix, Civ, Jazz, Strafe, and Yunfei.
Everybody off. We need to go on a quick adventure.
Hello, role players! Welcome to RPMMORadio, our 86th episode. Back in my day. Of course, I'm your host, Ashen Phoenix, and with me today is I don't do fractions. 2 out of the 5 crew, Jazz and Yunfei.
Hello.
Hello.
I know I don't do fractions. It's the only point the
3
metric
out of
system.
5.
So what is that, like 4/10? What part of I don't do fractions don't you get? I mean, so it's like 1 second?
3/5.
Nah, I'm pretty sure you're just making up stuff now. It sounds like that metric system gobbledygook. So the others are off. Sib is off running with the bulls. She's doing a 5K with bulls, I think. No, it's okay. She'll be safe. It's bulldogs. It's basically based off that commercial of the running with the bulldogs. And Strafe, I believe, is actually kidnapped by a Mexican cartel, and we may or may not ever hear from him again.
Probably not.
Nah, that's what you get for living in Texas and being a fan of Narcos and thinking you could take them all down on your own. You're not Batman, buddy. You're not Batman. I mean, you're not even Dr. Horrible or his sidekick Moist at this point. You're just Strafe. It's time to live with it. So, appreciate everybody tuning in. We do this every Saturday, except for when we don't, and that's usually the last weekend of the month. You can follow us over at twitch.tv/RPMMORadio. Subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. It's useful, it's helpful. It lets you know when we're here, and you can actually do the show live, which you can also do if you, for whatever reason during the show, you got something you're like, you know what? I have something to say. You could do it one of two ways. You could type it out. That's okay. It's good. I mean, you role play. Hopefully you've learned how to type by this point.
I wouldn't count on it.
Peanut Gallery, jazz. Or you can go to rpmradio.com/Discord, join our Discord server, and you can actually go to the caller waiting room and just talk to us live during the show, which is also good. It's preferable. I mean, I like the interaction more. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like talking to people that are typing, but talking to talking people is always talking better. Goodly. Best words.
Wow,
So,
words.
I got the best words. China.
Huge.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Jazz, for finally noticing. Unfortunately, it's more of a...
no, that's moobs, dear.
No, that's I was going to say. It's more of a left to right sort of general movement. It's not... So what happens with the body when it gets to a certain point is like, you know what? I think we've gone, up and down far enough. Let's stop that. Let's see about side to side. Let's see if we can grow out that way. Oh, yeah, look at that. This is way easier. Let's just keep doing this for the rest of our life.
Don't lie. It does feel like that, doesn't it? Like you reach a certain age and everything you eat is processed into fat at that point, no matter what you do.
A kale salad? That sounds like about 15 pounds.
Yep. No lie.
Oh, you put dressing on it?
Oh, that's 100 pounds right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to block one of your arteries now. Screw you, human body. You're absolutely the worst. Just the worst. I only know that because I've been trying to get healthy, because Sib has inspired me. She lost a lot of weight, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm trying to walk. I tried running. I did try running. My back's so bad that, like, a 50-meter dash, I think I pulled something. My muscles are so weak in my back.
Yeah, you shouldn't be running just because. You have to walk first.
Well, it wasn't I wasn't like a sprint, like I was running from the popo, like back in my youth and growing up on the mean streets of Broken Arrow. It was just a light jog. It wasn't even far.
You really shouldn't be running. If I'm running, something's chasing me, and you should too. It's really that simple.
Well, that's what I was practicing for that. That's in just in case.
I see.
I got a heist coming up. I mean, got to pay the bills
I went out
somehow.
to go for a walk, and one of my kids was like, "Are you going to jog?" I just looked at him and said, "Really?"
I said walk, not
What
exercise.
part of knowing me your entire life makes you think I'm going to jog anywhere?
I don't know either. I've got nothing.
I'm pointing to me. This right here doesn't run unless it hears, Mel, you got to get up. The apartment's on fire.
I might actually still walk out at that point.
It depends.
I don't think I'd even run if the house was on fire.
How big is the fire? That's
if one of my kids has a nightmare, I will dash across the house so fast my husband can't believe fat girl can move. Trust me. But barring my kids, no. There's nothing motivates me to run that fast.
See, for me, it's the opposite. If somebody woke me up and said, "Mike, there's a fire. There, you got to go. You're gonna die," I'd be like, is it a big fire? But if somebody woke me up at 2 a.m. and said, Mike, wake up. There's free barbecue in the front yard. I'm already at the stand for the barbecue. Like, the blankets are slowly lifting down to the bed where my body used to be. Because barbecue. It's just how things go.
Good
so,
deal.
without Strafay here to tell us, anyway, role play, I guess we should probably get to that too, huh?
Yeah.
So anybody
Probably.
do any role play this week? Like
I did.
I did. Jazz, maybe
You did too.
I actually did a little bit.
You did. I was very proud of you.
Jazz.
Yeah.
In
Roleplay and ESO is
in a brand new roleplay game that we've never heard of before, right? What was it called? Oh yeah, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Because there's
it's
no
not
new
new.
roleplay games.
Not even close. But ESO is still really quiet. I did try a couple of times to instigate roleplay at my normal times, and it didn't happen. So I'm in Tor still. There's an incredible amount of roleplay in Tor.
There is a surprising amount of roleplay.
It's not great roleplay, but it's roleplay.
But the fact, just the general...
they're trying, and they're actually not horrible at it.
Right. Well, in the number of guilds I see advertising for RP guilds advertising their guilds in just in even the shittiest of planets like Kesh, which is just it's just the worst planet. It's like if you took every
shithole ever and made it into a planet, that would be Kesh.
If you took every villain from the old Captain Planet cartoon, you know, the ones that were always like, I'm a capitalist. I like pouring radioactive water into the mouths of infant children. And you gave them a planet. This is Kesh.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
It even it's thank God it's a small planet. It's just, I mean, it makes Hutta feel like, oh, that's homey. It's a bad place. It's just dumb. And you're in and out of it so fast. It's just one zone. It's just dumb.
I just do the story. I don't even do
literally. There was
anymore.
me and 14 other people, and we were doing nothing but bitching about how we were on Kesh. So, yeah. But, yeah, it was... it's surprising the number of people, even there, saw advertisements for roleplay guilds. So it's good on Star Wars.
The roleplay community in Star Wars, while it is a bit on the who cares about lore category,
a bit.
It's still lore. It's still roleplay, and I have to say, while at least 30 to 40% of it is ignorable, just like an ESO, the rest of it isn't terrible. And every now and then you meet somebody that's actually pretty cool. So, you know.
Yeah.
Take it for what it is. It's entertaining a couple nights a week, so I'm not crapping about it. But I do have a journal thing to read.
Okay.
So since you're gonna pick me anyway.
What? Uni, did you hear that slander? I was absolutely gonna go first this time, and she's just throwing shade all over me. I don't really.
Sure you were.
You know what? I can't even talk right now. Just you do what you want to do. I can't talk to you when you're like this.
Okay. So the name of the journal is called "The Mating Habits of Act Dogs and Their Owners," Book 2. It is a sequel to the original journals that were called "The Mating Habits of Act Dogs and Their Owners." This is entry 3. So I haven't been at this very long, but it's been kind of fun to play Carib again, so I've enjoyed it. Here we go. Okay. A long time ago, I tried to think of a title for my journal. I wanted it to blend in with the rest of my files and not be easily seen. I realized that I had a great many books and files on act dogs, resulting from my obsession with learning about them long ago when I was compared to one. One of my most hated rivals called me an ack bitch, and when he didn't simply refer to me as a tailed slave whore, he was a charming male. Anyway, finally fixed that damn chair. Replaced the whole thing. I realized I was keeping it because it was broken by me the first week I had this ship in a tantrum, and every time I sit in it, I remember who I used to be and who I am now. But it's time to move on. Old lessons belong in books, not daily life. Where was I? Oh, yes. Daenerys. That ass. Anyways, he always called me an act dog, and I became obsessed with them for a while. I realized with annoyance at the time that he wasn't that far off. I was born and bred to be a weapon, and I knew that. Even then, my master often told me that enough. A weapon doesn't need emotions. Stop hanging on to them and worrying about the idea like a bone, girl. You're better than that. I'm glad he's dead too. Anyway, I named the book The Mating Habits of Act Dogs and Their Owners because I was also fascinated with the idea of what my master was up to and the people he was connected to. I had logs and notes that filled my storage back then, and the file blended right in. He had given me to Demorne, to Criff, and teach about love and lust, and I was still a little bitter about that because, well, I suppose I truly thought it was real, and to find out it was just an order given was hard to swallow, so to speak. So the title was multi-layered, just like my life. I felt like some beast they created and leashed in order to attack, just like, well, an act dog. It was fitting. And I have continued to view myself that way as the years turned into decades, even after I killed Daenerys and my various masters and the random males that pissed me off or Didn't. Let's not go down that road. Never know who might get these files someday. I have been many things, and I've grown and changed a lot over the decades so far. I like who I am now. I am content after a fashion. I am not afraid of what may come. I don't give one criff about what anyone thinks of me anymore. I have no, well, I do have friends, I suppose. Raish is a lover and a friend, and one of my closest these days. And Kenrick was a lover, and although it's been nearly a decade, certainly a friend. My sister Primin is a friend. I have a few from the old days that I'd still consider a friend, like Book. I miss her. She misunderstood me, or she just understood me better than I did myself at the time, which is why I was so angry with her half the time. But I respected her and I liked her, and yeah. I don't feel like I have friends. I have associates. I have lovers. I have potential lovers. I have people who want to know me or use me or think they can manipulate me. I have protectors and mentors and compatriots and coworkers. I have those I consider equals and those that have potential, but are they friends? I guess Mala is a friend, but she feels she owes me, and that feels really odd. But of all the people in my life, Raish, Vinzo, and Kenrick and Mala are probably my closest friends. Friends? Maybe. My newest project is Arthazil, and friend material? Maybe. We're not lovers yet. I'd criff him in a moment, but something stops me. I feel like there's something more important that will be lost if we indulge in sex, at least at this point. Sex is costs. It changes things. For Raish and Vinzo, for different reasons and necessary points of connection, sex was important. It added something. For Raish, connection to a cold and angry male that needed that connection as much as I did. And in Vinzo, who needed to feel like someone gave a damn and couldn't just believe anyone would care for him unless sex was involved. It also gave me power over him, and I hated that shot collar. It was necessary for dominance and to keep him in line, but it cost something too. Something precious I destroyed between us, and I knew that. I know that. But it was necessary. If I had not criffed Raish, if we had not found passion and lust, he would have vanished early on. If we were not bound by that accident of choice, we would not be together. I think we were both just too broken and enraged at life. He may have found me later, but I doubt we would be as close as we are now, and I doubt I would have learned to enjoy being touched, were it not for him. How in the void did I get this far off topic? Damn it all. Where was I? Oh, yes! Arthazil. Arthazil seems damaged in a way I can taste and remember all too well. I feel the power he has at the tip of things, just waiting for the right spark. Korriban nearly destroyed his potential, but it's still there, brewing like an infection. An infection. I like that. Long ago, Xanatos told me that I needed to learn to be a real person before I would ever truly understand the Force and use it to my full potential. And he was right. I hated him so much, so much. I resented how powerful he was, that he could just take me down with nearly little effort, so it seemed. He told me later it was an act, and he had really had to work at it. Ass. He gave me years of self-doubt. No one had come close to besting me but Master Nils. I was an unstoppable force until I met Xanatos and then Raish. They both made besting me look easy, and it infuriated me how they just gloated. Later, when they admitted I was actually a challenge and could have beaten them if I had just been a little more skilled, I threw myself into learning. That and seeing my daughter, loving that child, loving Jean, my first child, letting it flow through me changed everything. My connection, my ability to touch and use the Force exploded inside me. The power was intoxicating, and then I had to learn how to see the Force as a living thing, not a tool. You don't use the Force. You let it work through you. And once I had that, well, here we are. Raish taught me so much over the years about how to channel the Force, let it flow, not treat it like a caged beast or a weapon, that emotions are not weapons either, that the power you get from emotions is short-lived and exhausts you. I learned a lot in the past 5 years. Hell, I learned a lot in the last 5. Things have been interesting. And now I have Arthas and my apprentices and my investments and all that is mine and ours, and with Kenrick and all his hard work. Yes, his hard work. He did so much while I was gone, so much more than I tasked him to do, and we do care about each other. He did all this for me. He has his own business interests, of course, but mine, he never let it go. He could have. Just kept getting paid, but he didn't. No, he kept building and managing. He's a true friend and a business partner. We may have to pretend that I'm in charge, but in truth, we're partners. I really need to tell him that one day. Soon, really. He deserves that. And Arthas, well, he's clever. Dangerously so. I may have to decide what I want us to be and to go from there. Choices have costs, and this time around, I will do my very best to make the best decision. Not just for me either, but for him too, because I think that's what friends do, right? Right. Later. In voice entry.
Very good.
Long but good.
Yeah. Nope. I like because it told the story.
Yes.
Yes.
This is mentioning, Xanatos, who had a huge impact on her.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed our role play back on
Yeah.
Xanatos.
I plan on I'll bring him back out sooner or later. I gotta work back into it.
Yeah,
now.
but he got through to Kariv by getting her mad, and then turning it around on her and saying, "Now you can do better than that." And
Yeah.
I really liked how he handled her rage and turned
Yeah.
it around and said, your method of handling the Force is kind of like how a toddler gets mad when they can't have a toy.
Yeah. It was.
I'll never forget that and how mad she was.
Yeah,
when he
get
said
her enraged, and then just basically say, okay, well, of the two of us, who's now in control? You, who I've angered and put you in this spot and controlled your emotions from start to finish, or you, who's just flailing about like a toddler? Yeah.
It was
he
good.
was
It was
fu-
great
he was
RP.
fun.
And I really enjoy how she's grown and changed over the time that I had the roleplay going. So
Yeah, it's
she's
one of
been
those
a lot of
good
fun,
things
and I
that
missed
can
her.
Kind of, you had that growth while you're role playing, but when you come
Yes.
back, you can also think about, okay, well, how would all of this stuff?
Yeah,
Done
because,
to him.
she ran off to the edge of the galaxy to raise this daughter that she, created essentially in a test tube, and then had another Twi'lek have for her. And she didn't intend for it to be anything more than almost like a transaction. And instead, she fell in love with this little girl and is now a mom. So
Yeah.
she changed a lot in the time that she's been gone. And I really enjoy playing her even more now than I did before, because
There's more depth.
and there's depth, and there's also that she's not as easily angered anymore.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Yeah. How about you, Yunfei? You got anything?
No, I dreamed about roleplay though.
You
I
really?
didn't actually roleplay.
You playing anything?
Not really.
No. Well, I tried. So.
Well, I
will
looked
say-
for upcoming MMOs, and none of them
Look appealing.
have any interest to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It was
pretty
really,
dry
I was
out
really
there.
sad. Not one of them made me go, "Huh, that seems cool."
Yeah, there's a few I'm like, that potentially has potential.
I'm so cynical at this point. I'm
I
like,
know, I
that
really
looks
am
great,
too.
but they're going to ruin it before it comes out.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
was
I s-
even one of them, I don't remember the name, where you could play a fairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were telling us about that before.
I think, who was it? It was Trojan or something.
No, it's one that's not out yet.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't the blocky one.
It's got some ridiculously epic name. I don't remember.
Yeah, they're all going a little over the top with their names lately. I've noticed that, yeah. But
Well, I did have one thing that happened today that I thought you'd think was funny, Ashen.
What was that?
Because I had talked to you about how my littlest boy is really into like Roblox and PvP, and he's driving us all crazy because he just flies into rages and sobs. And this is my baby,
Right.
and I want to go get a bat and kill all of them because they make my baby cry. So I'm fighting my own mama bear instincts while he's flipping out because somebody's picking on him and killing him. And so this morning, I was like, okay, that's enough. And I walked out there and I said, you're done. And he had a little temper tantrum. And then I was like, no, really. You're just not meant. I said, some people are meant to play MMOs and some people are meant to play PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy can't play PvP. Do you know why? And he goes, why? And I said, because I fly into a rage.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to kill them for cheating and being asshats and not
better
playing
than
fair
you.
and having honor. And he was like, okay. And my two boys, of course, are snickering at me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, so I don't play PvP stuff very much. And guess who you are a lot more like? And he sighed. And he was like, you. I'm like, yes, because you've just spent the last 5 minutes explaining to me how no one who is mean and rude should be allowed to play.
Yeah.
Now,
and that's
while I
literally
agree with you,
most of them.
that's PvP, honey. That's just the way they're going to be. So you need to play something else. So my husband went and found a couple games and signed them. I forget what they're called, but they're little MMOs, but they're for younger kids. And
right.
so far, he's been better.
Did he ever do the Wizard 101?
I don't know what they're doing.
Take a look at that one. That one's it's kid made for kids, but it's fun. It's a card based combat game. It's I enjoy it.
I'll take a look at it.
It's come a long way.
Scribble Knots is still a bit above him.
Oh, because the words and
I
stuff.
love
Yeah,
Scribble.
yeah. My boy.
Scribble Knots is not nuts. Scribble Knots. Scribble Knots is fun. My husband loves it. My kids love it. But my little boy is not quite.
You got to have a vocabulary and able to
right.
spell the words,
and you've got to be able to spell. And,
yeah.
So it's a little above him still. He's still struggling with that. He's always had a problem with words. He's really great with math, but words are a problem. So
but he does not have the best words like me.
No, he can talk really well, but he can't pick out words and spell them or use them correctly. It's
that's right. Yeah, Wizard 101. Yeah, it is pay to play, but you can at least throw him in the starting zone. Apparently, if that's what's free. So
it's the game he's playing was made by the same people that make Rift.
It's a different on them, but one of their other.
It's one of their other games, and when it went through the email, I was like, "Why is that familiar?"
Yeah.
Oh, I remember why that's familiar because that is Rift. So hopefully he'll like it. But anyway,
Tryon
Ray off.
Tryon makes a lot of good stuff. But it's funny you say that too. But I've been playing Mortal Kombat 11, and it's a much different game than Mortal Kombat 10. Not in the fact that I literally can smash somebody in the head with a giant hammer so hard it puts it into their chest cavity and bursts out their back. That's pretty much the same, but it's a slower paced version of the combat. It's the levels aren't as large, and it's less about the speed and more about the timing of when you hit versus the other guy and that kind of thing. So I'm finding myself being like the last one. I think I broke a controller. Like my bare hands, I think I twisted it. I was so pissed off because things weren't going. The things that I was putting in weren't the things that were happening. Yeah. And so I've got issues, but I think
he will eventually like games like Fallout, where PvP is not the focus; it's other stuff. And I think that he'll do really well with story-driven stuff. But right now, he just needs to play something kind of silly and fun.
Yeah, but this one, when I'm being yesterday, I was against a guy that he was way out of my class. I mean, there's just no chance of I could probably play against him for an hour and not win a match. But I was like, that's cool, whatever. And then I've got faced other guys where it's the reverse, and I heard one kid, he was in there talking, he's like, fuck this, and all of a sudden, apparently this game has a nice new fatality. It's called a quit-ality. So when they quit, just a giant spike comes from the sky and pierces their character and kills them, and I get the win. Because they quit in the middle of the game.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, apparently I got a quitality. So, but nice. I found my temperament, either I've gotten older, it's only been a couple years, so I doubt that. I think it's just that now I feel like when I screw up, it's my fault, not the game not taking. Like, I know it's like, well, I fucked up that move, and that's why he whooped my ass. It's a weird thing that I think it goes from a little bit from maturity, the people you're playing against, and the actual coding of the game. Because if it doesn't feel like it was your mistake, it gets really frustrating. I think that's why people like those Dark Souls games, even though I'm not a huge fan. But at least when you die in those, it's because you fucked up, not because the game, was completely cheating or you did something wrong and you know it, and you can not do that next time. And that's why people get good at those games. But especially at his age, that's rough. That's a little tough. So, I did have roleplay. It was kind of the introductory stuff. I'm trying a bounty hunter character, Hexvin, and I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. He's a bit mouthy.
Just a bit.
Just a bit.
He's lucky this is the new Kariv. We'll just put the talent.
Yeah. But you know, he's kind of, I don't really have, I just went in, it's just like, all right, let's see what happens, and just went from there, went with the flow, and it was fun, but I don't really have a lot to report because it was only one roleplay session, so I'll go ahead and read one of my other Eternal Drifter stories. It's not too bad, hopefully. So this one is called The Eternal Drifter, The Boy at the Tombstone. The tombstone was already growing worn and weathered. 2 seasons of hot summer and chill winter, spring thunderstorms and first frosts of autumn aging them quickly. The little boy wept freely and unashamed as his tears cascaded down his red, puffy cheeks. "I miss you, Mom, Dad. I miss you so much." All the words he could muster before free-flowing tears poured from his eyes to salt the earth. Xanis passed him walking slowly, giving only a glance to the weeping boy. Even now, he cannot remember what race he was at that moment. However, the face he saw as the boy looked up and over the tombstone of his lost family, the wet tracks etched on his face like the sorrowed carvings of 2 vast canyons, pulled at something in his chest. The teardoll ducked his head and pulled his cowl tighter and kept walking, though. He only got 20 paces before he turned around. "Why do you cry, boy?" he asked, standing behind the boy as he looked over the aging graves. The boy needed no urging beyond that simple question. "I'm angry. I want my parents back. I lost everyone. I got no grandparents, no relatives. It was only us. Us!" He pounded the ground with his tiny, angry fists. Xanis said nothing and only stood there listening. "They was killed in the war with the Dark Ones. Killed. They threw themselves on me at the camp and they killed them. They didn't see me under there and I was so scared I didn't move. I didn't do anything to save them. And now they're gone and I've got nobody. It's not fair." Xanis finished for him, his face grim. No, it was not fair. Many things weren't. This boy and thousands like him. Xanis owned recent losses. His heart swelled at the thought and grew heavy. The boy turned at that unguarded moment and saw the telltale signs of violet skin under the hood. A dark elf. The small body lunged at the sudden embodiment of all his rage and loss standing right before him. He slapped and kicked at the taller man. "You! You're one of them! I'll kill you! I'll kill you all! All of you!" It was not the small slaps and punches. It was not the words. It was the place in which they came from. A place he knew all too well. The darkest pits of hatred and vengeance. A place that, once gone to, was next to impossible to climb from. Xanis dropped to his knees and grabbed the tiny wrists firmly, his cowl slipping to reveal his fading violet eyes as he looked at the tear-streaked face of the boy. "It's not fair, and you should be angry, but there is more to your life than anger, a power stronger than any anger." He spoke hard and fast, but there was something else, the underlining tone that caught the youth's ears. Genuine concern. Sacrifice. Your parents sacrificed themselves for you, so that their love for you would go on, even without them. To meet a nice girl, to work hard, raise a family of your own. These are what their blood of their sacrifice can buy. Only you can wash away that blood and vengeance and destroy the sacrifice they made for you. They watched one another for a long moment. Xanis released the boy, stood, walked away, and continued on his promised journey. Many decades passed. He had not been by that path in a long time, and had only occasionally thought of the young lad at the tombstone so long ago, between his training as a monk and his own travels. There was a gathering of many people. Little children ran, playing chase, while the older and taller group stood in a semicircle. As before, he only gave a small glance, though now his face was not covered in shame and fear. "You!" came the shout of an old man. "Oi! You, I say, stop there. Zanus did, and readied himself for trouble. Turning, he saw the shouting man hobbling towards him at a great pace, his cane leading the way and twice swatting away a worried younger woman. Grandpa, slow down, you're going to hurt yourself. The old man paid her no mind. You, by the gods it is you. You haven't changed at all. I thought I'd never see you again. Zanus had no idea who the old man was until he began to weep. The tears flowed, they washed down his cheeks, and with them, the age of time to reveal the crying young boy at the pair of tombstones. This is my family, all of it. I lost my wife a year ago, but these are my children, grandchildren, and over there, he pointed to a young lady with a swollen belly that looked away shyly. That's my great-grandchild in a belly. The dark elf smiled. What you said that day, I listened. I was going to join the military or become a mercenary or some such thing, but that's not what they would have wanted. Not for that reason. And now I have my family. I'm old, but I lived a long, happy life. Thank you. Zanus only nodded to the old man as his eyes swept over the family, easily over a dozen strong already. He could not take credit, of course, and he would not. It was not a sacrifice to take credit for, but as he looked into those tear-worn cheeks, he could not say anything that would convey that to the old man. As he turned with a nod and began on his road once more, he replied simply, You're welcome. And that's that.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. Now, old Zanus. Dust them off every now and then.
Yep. That was some hella good RP.
Yeah. There's a golden age. They'll come back, Jazz. That was back when people knew how to use forums. Isn't that right, Jazz?
Yeah. That kind of segues right into what we're going for. That's awesome.
That's what we call a transition. It's even better when we point them out because we're so proud that it actually went well for a change. Usually we're like,
so, roleplay.
So, roleplay. So, take it away, Jazz.
Okay. So, history and background is where we're going to start. This is about reading and writing, the last bastion of creativity that is roleplay, and why it seems to have disappeared for the large part. Roleplay does appear to be, and even by statistical standards of people that watch these sort of things, say that roleplay is on a decline. Largely because it requires that you read and write. There you go. So,
which is crazy.
Here we have the issue.
Because being a nerd is more popular now than it ever has. It's more accepted
right.
now than ever
Playing
before.
games and obsessing and cosplay and all of that stuff is totally okay. But roleplay in and of itself, the art of roleplay, is disappearing. And I don't believe it has to, but I do believe that it has been in a decline for a while now. So we're going to talk about history and background first. In 2005, I made a roleplay guild in an MMO called EverQuest 2, and we've talked about that quite a bit.
I think we've mentioned it once or twice.
Yeah, just once or twice. And this was my first venture into MMOs. And there wasn't a dark roleplay guild, so I made one. And I created a forum, because back then, that's what you did. Every guild had a forum. Mm-hmm. Most roleplay was still in forums.
Forum-based, yeah. Things like
Discord,
it was
forum-based and MUDs and things like that. So it was, the MMO worlds were new, and people were just now starting to roleplay in them. And so when I first made my forum, it was booming. Everyone that was in the guild used it for the most part. There were profiles and journals and stories, and everybody was writing, and the creativity was amazing. Mm-hmm. We bounced off of each other, and we had so much fun, particularly in Silver Circle, but also in EverQuest 2. In other games, I heard that was the golden age of roleplay with other people, too. In every game that there was where people were roleplaying, that was the golden age. Between 2004 and 2008 was this series of years where roleplay just exploded. exploded everywhere.
Yeah, and it was also, and of course, that was the EverQuest 2 had come out, and World of Warcraft is, out that they both released in that year, and then the 4 years after was
Right.
only on the incline, so it was only getting more and more accepted.
Right. And every game that followed, 2008, 2009, Roleplay went to those games, but the use of forums began to decline. And by 2011, 90% of the people in my guild didn't even look at the forums, not even my officers. And I couldn't beg, borrow, or steal them to do it.
Mm-mm.
They just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't go. And the more you asked, the more stubborn they got and refused to go.
Not to name names, but one of them happens to be on this show and isn't in this episode right now.
Yes, he is one.
But he's made mention of that multiple times.
Yes, because he resented that I hounded him about it. Because I told my officers, you at least have to go. I mean, even if nobody else does, you guys need to keep track of profiles and help me do this and that, and they never did. And it became my basic job to keep track of the forums and handle everything. But by 2011, it was in decline.
Right.
And there just wasn't much there.
Only a few dedicated morons,
right?
Like me and you, and
somewhere between 5 to 15 people use the forums.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Of the 40 people I had in my guild, only about 15 people used the forums, and that was in 2010.
Yeah, and only about 5 of them did it daily or multi.
Right, and by 2011,
yeah,
just a year later, that had dropped to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Now it's 2019. I do have a website for them. I always do, because I like to write character journals and profiles and stories. And so I have to have a place to put it where other people can read it. So I made a website for them called Shadows and Dreams. And that's where we have a cross-game Discord channel. We have a cross-game website forum for every game you can think of, and their profiles and stories and journals, places for those things.
It just got to be too much to make one for every freaking guild.
Right. And we were doing it for every game I was playing, so I had like 3 or 4 sites.
Right.
I was like, this is stupid, especially when I'm the only person using it most of the time.
At the beginning, it was, like when you did it for Silver Circle, that was a 10-year-long thing, so that was fine. But then the problem with the MMOs becoming more samey, so we would this looks like fun, Age of Conan, so you'd make an Age of Conan website, and a year later, no one's playing it anymore.
Right. So we just made it cross-game, and that made a lot more sense, and it's been around for a couple of years now, and I like it, and I post there on all the games that I play.
Mm-hmm.
Most people else don't, but the profiles are public, so if you do a Google search for any character on that site, you're going to get their profile. You won't get anything else. You won't see the journals. You won't see anything else that's hidden behind the
join.
Not a subscription screen, but basically the same idea. You have to sign in and join in order to see the rest of it. But the profiles are public, so you can search and see the profiles for any character that's there, and we consider that to be known knowledge that's in their profile that anybody can find out. And I tell people to not put anything in their profiles that they don't want the world to know. So, over the last 7-ish years, the number of users hasn't increased and maintained somewhere between 5 to 7 people frequenting the site on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's not even daily anymore. Yeah.
No, it's weekly.
And I
look at the numbers. We're staying right about there. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people don't post, but they do read. So we're still getting between 5 and 7 people who come to the site and peek in. I have no way of knowing what they actually look at, but I know that they come to the site and they look around.
Yeah.
And considering how many used to use the forums, it saddens me that it's such a small number. But I'll take it because, I have to use it. So there's my little yappy dog. I still use and write the site for myself and any game I play in. But like I said, there's only a few people. Now, about a year ago, I started doing research into trying to find out why this was. And largely in 2014 as well, I took a class on literacy and illiteracy and why it's problems. So between that class and current stuff, I've figured out that there are reasons why people aren't doing it and why RP is in decline and why people aren't using forums and why roleplay is struggling to find people to participate at least more than
Hold on, Jazz. I gotta write this 240 character minimum tweet. It's just I'm good. I got bored halfway through. What were you saying?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's exactly the problem. So the next line is, why is this happening? I've done a lot of research into it. I've read a lot about it. I took a class on it. I was trying to figure out
I
why
want
this
to party
is happening.
with you.
Huh?
I want to party with you. You sound like you know how to have a good night.
Anyway, now I don't mean for anything that you're about to hear to sound judgy or negative. I'm simply talking about what research has said, that this is what's going on. It's not a judgment on any particular age group because it's across all age groups. It's not just millennials, those damn millennials.
Millennials.
It's all across all age groups. It's not just one. Part of the reason, the very first reason listed, is laziness and disinterest in anything that requires effort. And this isn't scientists being mean. They're saying that, you can tweet and it's easy. You can go to Facebook and read a little update and it's easy. And you get information in a very short period of time and you've got what you need and you move on. And TV shows, the best shows that do the best are within 30 minutes.
Yeah,
hour-long shows get lower ratings.
Yeah, though, unless you're on, you have to get to the status of Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, and
right, you have to get in, or like CSI, which had but they had a rocky start. But once they got a following, then they did great.
Yeah, you have to, if you can't hook the people, and a lot of them, it's like Game of Thrones. It's kind of been neat with the Game of Thrones thing because everyone's watching it. Almost everybody is watching it week to week, and something like this hasn't happened culturally on television or something like that since DVR came about. Because before you could, if you missed something, so it was the water cooler talk, who shot JR, which was the joke in the thing. But that was something the entire, I don't remember it well, I was a kid, but I know everybody in the country wanted to know. And we're all watching that show at that night on Dallas.
Or at least keeping track of it on some level. So yes, that's very true. And what the science has said is that people want to be entertained in the moment without having to do anything but turn on a piece of technology. They don't want to use passwords. They don't want to look for something. If it takes more than 30 seconds, they aren't interested and can't be bothered. And this is what the researchers have discovered, particularly in the USA, by the way, but also in other countries. It's not just the USA, although the USA is worse in this aspect. Americans are well known for, if you can't entertain them in 30 seconds, you've lost them.
Well, and and part of that here is that, and I'll put this in too because I've know about this on the I'm a TV and radio and buff and all that stuff. I like that stuff, but one of the things we're being trained that way. If you watch Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, if you watch any of the news channels, it doesn't matter which one. This is across the board. Pay attention to the shots. I know this is going to sound stupid, but if you pay attention to the shots, or ESPN, even sports, if you want to go there,
15 seconds max.
It actually, from what I've heard, they want at this point it's almost I think they're at 7 to 8
seconds. Have they lowered
it?
It used to be 15 seconds. Was the maximum. It used to be,
but from what I've heard, they've actually, in a lot of places, they don't want a single shot to be held on one person or even the group of people. You can stay on the same group of people, but that shot has to switch from one camera to the other every 7 seconons.
Yeah, and that just blows my mind and I think that explains why I don't like the news anymore.
Yeah.
Because it gives me a headache.
Will you please, and they say it's because people will get bored, but I know there are some TV commentators out there that they were like, they had enough clout, they're like, I'm going to do my own thing. And they would do their entire monologue in one shot. And now the quality was good and the content of the people watching it were interested and it worked just fine. It's almost like they're programming this stuff in, assuming the worst because they're latest and they know the best for what the Americans. They're too. Well,
I would say that on average, I think science is right. You're always going to have. It depends on the group you want to appeal to. But yeah, if you're going for the people who don't want to pay attention very long or don't have time, energy, patience, money to take that much time and energy to pay attention, then I can see why they do it that way.
It's a self-propagating, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they complain about that, yet they cave into it. Instead of it's what happens with everybody. You somebody has a weakness, and instead of challenging them to overcome that weakness, you cave into the weakness and then just you do it for them. And of course, why would they? They're not going to grow stronger and overcome it. You're not going to get a longer attention span by having 7-second clips, and things like that.
No. But that's how they. I mean,
yeah. Oh no, you're right. It's also the solution, or the problem is part of the solution, and the solution's part of the problem. They're creating their own problem. It's a weird, it's. One of those
I was seeing some of this
things.
even on the websites. I was seeing this as things began to peter off, and people weren't coming and reading as much anymore.
Mm.
I started paying attention to who was getting the most clicks for journals.
Oh,
and the people that got the most clicks for journals had 10 sentences max.
Oh,
maybe
really?
20. A paragraph, and that was their entire freaking entry. I took the time and the effort and the energy, and people were like, "It takes too long to read."
See, I thought you were going to go
up into a couple of different posts.
No, you're right, but I thought you were going the other way. The other way, because now how everything is like based. The people. This is probably also true. The people that get, even if they might do the extra effort, if they can get people to read it, if they get enough people liking and saying, "Hey, good job," if they get the accolades for the work,
right? And
they
they didn't have the like thing back then,
right? True.
Now they do, and it's a big thing, and people will do that. I've noticed in some of the other websites, the people that have the most likes, I go in and I can't even.
In this case, or back then it would have been views. If you saw the view counter and you knew,
right, that's what I meant by clicks.
Yeah,
their view. If you were looking at it, how many people versus, because my profiles often did very well, and I had a lot of clicks for my profiles. My journals tended to be less, and so I started shortening them, and lo and behold, it worked. Instead of having 2 or 3 pages per post, which is what I was more comfortable writing, I wrote 3 to 5 paragraphs tops.
Yeah.
And then that was the end of that. And then the next day I'd post another one, and the next day I'd post until I get the whole
You do the same
story
amount
out.
of work, but instead of doing it once every 2 or 3 days, you just do the same thing once a day. And
so I would write it. Yeah, I would write it all at once, and then I would break it up and post it smaller chunks. And I noticed my readership went up 300%.
There's some sort of psychologically to it.
And that's again, it's the low attention span. They don't want to take the time. And everybody told me, "Wow, I just love your journal now. I don't know what you did." And I'm sitting here in the background grumbling because I'm like, "Oh, I know what I did."
I started using part 1, part 2, and part 3. Right?
Yeah, you've probably noticed I didn't ever used to do that. I wrote the whole story all at once. Now I do part 1, part 2, part 3, and I drag it all out so that people will actually pay attention. And that's something that did not come to me. And also because I am kind of an elitist when it comes to writing.
No,
as a writer, I know.
Did you know that?
When it comes to writing, I want it grammatically correct. I'm very careful. Spell check is a thing. I don't know why people don't use it.
Especially these days, man. It corrects words. It's like, I
Back
know
then,
I have that
you
spelled
didn't
right.
have spell check. You had to go into Word and use spell check and then put it in. So
now everything has it.
Everything has it everywhere. But I mean, I was like, what are they writing that is so much better than mine when they don't even use the right words? They don't use the right grammar. They can't spell. But everybody reads that, but they don't read my stuff because it's too long. I just was so annoyed. But I finally was like, stop being annoyed and fix it. So I did. Yeah. And I did better.
And I'm gonna come to your defense, Jazz, because while I know what she's saying sounds elitist and like she was only in it for the clicks, her stuff is actually good. But what she's talking about, it was some of the stuff. It was like it was written by a 4th grader, and yet for some reason people gobbled it up. And she is somewhat elitist. She knows.
I am. I'm not denying it.
But at the same time, it's not an ego trip when she says like, "Why weren't they clicking on my stuff and reading it?" It's more of the why aren't you clicking on this? What's the difference between this and that? It's more of a scientific way. I know. Yes. It may come off like it does. Well, why aren't they? But in her defense,
for me, it's a science thing. I'm like, no, wait a minute.
Clear, that it's not a It's not a pout and stomp my feet. Well, I'm going to take my toys and go home thing. It's a why is this happening thing. I just want to I'm going to come to Jazz's defense on
Thank
that
you.
one.
Yes, because I do not always communicate well. Thank you. a lot of what I think comes off a little sideways sometimes.
That's all right.
But anyway, so that's there. Another reason, we'll go to the next point, is a form of narcissism that is rampant in the US and many other advanced cultures. People are only interested in something that directly involves and mentions them. If they are not the center of attention, if they're not being mentioned directly, then they can't be bothered to read it. And this is also something that researchers...
sister.
Yeah, people have pointed out that this is true. That's why newsreels tend to try to sound like they're talking directly to you.
Soundbite.
Whereas before it was informational. Now they're like talking to you and trying to make it sound and use small words so they can appeal to the largest number of people, which irritates me.
Well, I mean, of course, obviously, we're doing a radio show, and the whole point of this is to sound like, you listening right now. We are actually doing that. We're talking to each other, but we're talking to you in our mind, because we're not a news organization. I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but we don't do news. But we're opinion. We're a talk show. We talk. So when we are talking to you, we're talking to you. We are aware that somebody is going to be listening to this.
Yes, and we're talking to our audience as well as to each other.
Not to make anyone nervous, several hundred somebody. But the narcissism thing, there's another aspect of that I've also noticed, Jazz, that I'm sure you'll have too. If they're reading a journal, for example, and they're not directly involved in it, like if they're not mentioned, their character's not mentioned by name or at least by proxy, they're not interested anymore.
Yeah, if you're not commenting on a role play that happened with them and you, if you're not commenting, like, why didn't she talk? People would do this all the time with Vodka.
Why did you?
I was in a role play for 2 hours with Vodka, and you didn't mention it once in your journal. Because it doesn't matter to Vodka. I couldn't say that, but I was just like, because Vodka doesn't care about you. But can't say that.
And because it may have been something, it may have been mundane or something really not worth expounding on.
Oh, look, another person being annoying. Yeah, I mean, she just wasn't going to comment on that. So,
but there's that form of narcissism as well. If they're not part of it, they won't read it. Right,
and that's very common. I've had people tell me, I just don't read it anymore because you never talk about anything to do with my characters. Why would I read it?
Talk about me, right?
Yeah. And I was like, well, it's not your journal. Why would I talk about you? Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So another point made by researchers is the idea that people find text boring. They want images so that their mind doesn't have to search for meaning or struggle with pronunciation, i.e. there's not enough pictures.
What's funny with that is the pronunciation part. Is one of the things I did when I read. I do a lot of audiobooks now, so pronunciation is not so difficult because someone's reading it to me and they usually can pronounce it right. There are some audiobooks that do it wrong, but like when back in the days of like the dark elf names for like Drist, Dord, and I pronounced it Drizzt, which everybody did. It's actually Drist.
Yeah. Nobody said it right. I always said it was the other way.
Yeah, and one day he came out and said, there's no I at between the Z and the T, But it happens. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But even then, like Menzoberranzan, the Dark Elf city, until I heard it in audio form, I could not pronounce that fucking name. So I would see it, I would connect it as the Dark Elf homeland city, and I would move on with my reading because I couldn't. I didn't pronounce it. I couldn't even pronounce the damn thing in my head. I just had the connection. So, fuck fantasy because you guys are making up words that's hard to pronounce even in my own head.
And like in EQ2, when I went back and played Miriam again, and her journals were rife with NC-17 stuff, which got some people interested. But at the same time,
go on.
It was still all text. I didn't do anything. Well, one day I worked on a book that was about what she is and what it means to be what she is. And I included pictures.
Oh.
I uploaded every single picture involved. Now, see, I often used pictures in my writing, but they didn't. It's hard you have to post the picture on a site and then link it. It's a pain in the ass.
You use them as your inspiration, don't you?
Right. But I didn't ever post them. And one of my friends who I was visiting at the time saw my journal and she was like, why didn't you ever look at all these pictures are so cool. You should post them. And I'm like, I would fill up my posting limit doing that. But I finally went ahead and did it. And I got more views on that book than I got in both Vodka and Miriam's journals combined.
Well, I mean, to be
because
fair...
they were pictures.
To be fair, too, boobs.
No, there wasn't any boobs. That's the thing.
Oh, they
it
were
was...
there. They were there somewhere.
Oh, well, okay, fine. But it looked more like paintings or
No,
drawings.
you're right.
They weren't porn.
Well, it's kind of it's kind of like what I mean, because I was a fun kid. When you got your textbooks back in the day, before it was all digital, I loved like the history textbook. I loved flipping through it and looking at the pictures. You're not wrong. And I would, I would read what was under it. I would, if the article was interesting in it, I'd actually read that too. But I loved the pictures of the old stuff. People were very visual people, and does seem like though with the text that it's kind of becoming a lost art. Which is why I think audiobooks are picking up the way they are. There's more, like Audible.
Because people spend a lot of time in their cars, and it makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Or walking somewhere or on the bus, and so having an audiobook makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and they're more popular now, and people, they just the time we multitask everything. So I'm walking and I'm listening. I can't walk and read a book because I've seen videos on YouTube of how well that ends. You end up in a fountain face first or into a manhole cover that was open. It doesn't end well. It's why you don't text and walk, people.
Yeah.
So, but those things. There's more audiobooks now, which is it's a great time to be, somebody with a disability that can't read and do that stuff, because there's more now than there ever. Back in the 80s, it was you had to send off for it to it was read by fucking the most boring person on earth, just gave the information. It was awful.
And now they do sound effects and everything.
Oh, man.
It's fantastic.
Okay, real quick, ADD moment. There's a podcast out there called Wolverine, the Long Night. It's done by Marvel, and it's literally just it's 10 episodes of 30 minutes. It's old radio dramas. They have actors for every character. They have the old sound effects, when they get in the car and start the engine, it's like you hear the door shut, all that. It's very well done. It's so cool, and it's something I've looked for stuff like that, because I love listening to those old radio dramas when I can find them, but almost nobody does them these days. And that one is free. It's on
and
a
now
podcast.
audiobooks are doing it actually more and more. Star Trek. This was back in when I was driving truck, which would have been in 2000 or 2002. No, go back farther. 1996.
Sure, I wasn't even out of high school yet.
Yeah, and the audiobooks had just started being a thing, and I was driving a truck, and I was bored. I drove graveyard. That was my time to drive, and so a friend of mine gave me a bunch of Star Trek fanfic stuff that was all acted out with like the guy that plays Q and things and Whoopi Goldberg, and they were really good, by the way, sound effects and everything, and it reminded me of the radio shows.
Yeah,
and it was a lot of fun, and I practically drove past important things because I was so sucked into the visualness of what they were doing. It was great. So I'd say that is why it's on the uptick and has continued to get better, because they're making it more like the old radio shows, and I suspect we're going to go back to that to some degree.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, part of that, because I've been on Audible for over a decade. I've got almost 500 audiobooks on Audible. I've been doing it for a while. And that's when we do our readings, like Jazz and I did earlier, and sometimes when we've done some of the story, that's what we get the inspiration from. It's just we're trying to recreate that because, well, hopefully our writing's worth listening to. That's obviously.
I hope so. I hope they like it.
That's one of those. That's another topic I have is insecurities, because even though we're talking on this, we all got them. We don't know if this shit's good in our own head, and our friends are just being nice to us.
I know. Yeah.
But so far no one's been like, "Wow, that was literally one of the worst things I've ever heard in my entire life." That was awful. It was like someone took a bag of dog shit and beat that bag of dog shit with another bag of dog shit, and that was what you wrote.
Oh my God, there's an image. Okay, moving forward.
So it's good that stuff's coming back, hopefully. But the reading, I'll be honest, Jazz. I find myself at times, like when I click on an article or something, I'm just like, I don't know I think part of it is because I was only mildly interested to begin with. And the other part is so much of it these days, when you're for information, is opinion. It's like, I don't want your opinion. Yes. I want to hear proof. The story and the facts. I don't need to hear your snide comments. And this is especially bad in video game journalism. Like I said, I do read like politics and stuff too, but for the most part, I'm going to say most of it's video game stuff. And it's almost all rife with opinion. They claim still to be journalists. So we're just journalists. We don't do opinion stuff. Well, then why is the first sentence in here, well, this is what we've come to expect?
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks. I know EA sucks, but come on. You're supposed to give me the facts, not
But we
color it
come
with
from
your
an
opinion.
era where television, and particularly news, was not based on opinion.
Now,
And that, I mean, my sons have
I'm
never
Ted
seen
Koppel, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. And he tried to be as
Yeah,
tell both sides. And even though it was obvious, I think, to anybody that understood humanity, that he actually did have an opinion, he didn't voice that opinion other than probably in the inflection of his voice. But
Right.
he still relayed both sides
and
of
it's
the
impossible.
coin.
Nobody's
Nobody's,
unbiased.
unless you're data, you're not capable of doing that.
Right.
But
at the same time, in writing,
he still presented it on both sides. And when he was wrong, he said he was wrong.
yeah, and when you're writing an article on on how bad EA is, you don't need to go with "and here EA goes again." You know how they are. It's like,
I blame World Wrestling for that nonsense. They're all trying to be wrestling.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the last point is we've heard a lot of stuff that it's probably hard to listen to, and it's also largely conjecture, even though it's research based. I can see how some people, I don't think that's true. Well, you don't have to think that's true. It's true. But anyway, one of the more concrete reasons that people can actually grab onto. One is people have finite time. And the other one is people have finite energy, particularly now versus 100 years ago. People have finite time. They have a set amount of time free after they get home from work to do what they want to do before they have to go to sleep, to get up, to go back to work and start it all over again. Everybody, just about, unless you were independently wealthy, come home from work, you have this block of time, and you have to choose where you spend that block of time. Mm-hmm. Some people turn on the TV and they watch TV all night. Some people play on computer games or play WoW. Some people read a book. Everybody has their own thing of what they do in that finite time. And as people are working more and there's less money, there's less time to do some of the things that they want to do. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The second thing is people have finite energy. Writing and reading to some regard use up energy, both emotional and physical. Passion takes energy. Time takes energy. Looking for something takes up energy. And energy is something many people don't have, and even less time. So what leads to this lack of time and energy to read and write? And there's a lot of things that go into it, and we could probably spend an entire thing just talking about that, but I summarized it as best I could. I read 4 or 5 articles that all basically said the same thing. 1, in truth, we are a drowning society where most people barely make enough money to pay basic bills and living costs. They are running on empty 99% of the time.
Hear, hear.
When you work hard or work more than one job, you don't have time or energy to do anything fun. You're lucky if you can find some time to play a game, let alone role play, and forget about finding something on a forum.
Yeah.
And I think that right there is part of the problem, that they don't want to look for something. They just want it to be there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you have to. Okay. So
now the last
gotta
point.
Put this out there real quick. Is that I'm not the only one. How many of you guys have gone to like, I want to watch something on Netflix?
Oh God!
And then 45 minutes later, you're still looking for something that you wanted to watch on Netflix, and you're like, you've got a list of things like, well, that seems kind of interesting, but maybe there's something else that would be more interesting, so you keep clicking. Well, maybe that's kind of neat, but maybe there's stuff that would be more neat. And by the time you're like, oh, I could have watched the first thing by now if I had just made up my fucking mind. I can't be the only one that's done that.
There's too much out there. That's true.
It's overwhelming almost. Even when you do have your block of time, just shit or get off the pot. You come to something that looks mildly interesting, do yourself a favor, click the goddamn button.
Just do it. Yeah.
Just sit down and watch it.
that they all agreed on is that most people in our country make less than $60,000 a year, and a great many people make less than $30K. Young people between the ages of 17 and 35 are working and making less than their counterparts over 40 were at the same age. There's no disposable income and there's no disposable time.
Disposable income.
Yes.
You missed the S. You said disposable income.
Oh, disposable. Yes. There's no disposable time and there's no disposable income.
Yeah.
When disposable, I had somebody ask me that the other day. What the hell is that? I said, that's what's left over after you pay bills. And they said, there is no money left over after bills.
That
exactly.
would mean you don't have any disposable income.
So that's the same reason why the restaurants are all going out of business. That's the same reason why stores like, that place where you went and bought your hair doodads in the mall way back when. That place went out of business. All players.
I've got no idea what you're talking about.
I'm talking to girls there.
Oh, okay.
So all these things, both games and otherwise, depend on disposable income. So as disposable income has slowly went away, all this stress falls on the people. And these three things, we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money, and we don't have enough energy. And then you throw in there that people still have hobbies, and they like, my hobby is role playing. I still want to role play, but let's be honest. After a long day at work, sometimes I just want to go sit in the bar, find somebody to pick on, and have a little fun. And that's it.
She means the role play bar, not an actual bar.
No, well, actually, I used to do it in a bar before I role
for a
played.
second, it was like, wait, you go to a bar and just pick on people? That sounds like a horrible idea.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was much younger. So I really haven't changed that much. I just do it in a role play setting now. Or I would people watch for hours. I used to do that when I was a kid. So it's not a surprise that I like to go to a bar in a game and people watch because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I'm still watching their stories and I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing where it's going to go. And sometimes they interact with me and sometimes they don't. So how do we fix this? In part, there has to be a way.
Like we have to fix society.
Well, yes, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that at large right now.
What,
other
this
than
tiny
what most of us
podcast in
are
the middle
trying
of
to
nowhere, I can't do anything? I don't want to believe it.
All we can do is strive to create more disposable income, but that is a huge thing that's going to take a while. So we're not even going to go there.
Yeah, I could go into the problems with the government on that one, and there's that's a problem to create to have a problem to fix to create another problem so that they can look like they're fixing it. And don't get me wrong, they both do it.
So the best way to fix things is to make writing easier, or if that's not possible, make it more interesting so it pulls people in even when they're just too damn tired to care.
Get good, scrub.
It means getting good. It means making an effort to advertise. This is hard.
And
this is something that I struggle with.
And it can bite you in the butt too, because advertising for the podcast, I've gotten negative feedback. I'm like, you're just doing that for... Well, yeah, because otherwise, if I wouldn't do it, people wouldn't even know about the show. That word of mouth can get you farther than anything else. But that mouth has to first find out about it through some other means. It doesn't just exist in a vacuum.
Right.
So that's
why one of the things that
I've
run into a lot, particularly in roleplay issues here, is that a lot of roleplay guilds advertise. We never have. I never have. I refuse.
Servants did they had a couple people. They even had a 50,000 gold bounty reward if somebody actually joined.
I never did any of that. Yeah. All I ever did is tell people, go out, be seen role playing, talk to role players that are not insane, talk to role players that are mildly insane but interesting, and bring them into the guild, because insane people in role play really well. That's why there's so many insane people in role play. Let's just not even try to lie about that. Anyway, so that's the first thing, is to make it easier and make it interesting. Include people in your stories. Include people when you're talking to somebody. What do you do? Well, I do this, or I have a site over here that I write in a journal. Oh, I'd love to see that. And then they want to come and they want to take a look. Maybe they'll only come for a week, but maybe they'll come for 6 years and bring 2 people. So get out and be seen. That's the first one. The second one, many forum sites have moved to journal sites where the forum aspect is hidden behind a UI that appears to be less daunting. It also tends to be more self-focused, which draws people in. I have been told that I should write my journals I should write my character journals as a journal on a journal site.
Okay, wait.
But
you inceptioned me and I got lost.
Okay.
Wait. Okay. You write your... Okay, say it again.
Okay. I'll back up. I'll try it from a different angle. Maybe it'll be easier to follow that way. Okay. I personally have a journal, and I write on a journal site called Open Diary. And on that journal site, I write about my life, and I write about things that I go through. And I have, back when they were still open, they were open for 10 years. I wrote there, then they closed. They reopened recently, and I rejoined, and I'm back to writing again. Now, what a lot of people do is they go to these cute little journal sites, and they make a character journal for their character on that journal site.
Tumblr. The people do that on Tumblr a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very common for a lot of people. And so these people have 5 or 6 journals just on their characters, and people will go and look at those journals.
Yeah.
And it's still a forum, people. It's just it's behind a UI that looks like a journal. Still a forum. It's the same thing.
I think the David R. Haley, one of the listeners, he actually on not Twitch. What's the other one? Twitter. Thank you. On Twitter, he actually has his profile for him is a human being man, and then he's got another Twitter profile for his Khajiit character, and posts on Twitter is like the Khajiit, and people, that's what people do a lot of. That's the same thing like people do more than 240 characters over on Tumblr. But it's still forums.
As well. They just
no, you're right. I'm just saying that
behind another UI that looks simpler.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing too because I like on Tumblr you can actually write like you said full length journals, and you can write shit on there more than 240 characters, and I can't get behind it. I have no. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it or people shouldn't do it, but it's just so foreign and alien and strange to me just to have because I like to be able to go and like look at the things as they come up on a forum. Hey, this one's not grayed out. It's white. Something new. I'm gonna click on that as opposed to scrolling through a giant feed of some stuff that may actually be story driven and story written, as opposed to other stuff that's just bullshit that's supposedly posted as the character, which is in no way interesting at all, given that you can't post on, Tumblr or Twitter in a fantasy MMO. And it's a weird mixing. I've noticed a lot of more
mixing.
modern role players do it.
It's too easy to make that misstep.
What was that? There was a guy in the guild that
he's still there.
Right, was always everything he says, even in our OOC chat, he says it as if he's the damn character, and it drives me out of my mind because it's a form of insanity.
But I've come to understand that he is separating. I had to talk to him for a while to get to understand how he does it, and it's very foreign to you and I. It's kind of like listening to my kids role playing in voice.
Yeah,
I was like, "What in the hell are you doing?"
That I still get, but when you are posting as yourself, but as your character,
he talks that way in real life, and he has a character that talks that way, but they are separate. But it did take me having to talk to him, and Wolf talked to him, and Tarly talked to him, and we had several people talking to this man, trying to figure out if this man was just bonkers or if he honestly was some kind of theater. Huh?
I said, let's keep that option open. I'm still not entirely convinced, but okay, but but like that, I'm sure he's a lovely individual and reads to orphan children at soup kitchens or something, but it's weird to me, and I can't get over it. And I will admit, I'm not gonna lie, it colors my view of him and makes me want to have nothing to do with him, which is why
I have to admit, when he first started that nonsense, you'll remember, I was like, hell nah, we ain't going down this road.
Yeah, because we've had it happen before, and it always ends badly. Now,
it always ended badly.
Apparently, he's, not quite
but I've talked to
crazy,
him, and I've talked to him OOC, and I've talked to him in voice, and he is a stable human being who just likes to talk this way, and that's fine. But it did take, I had to make sure because of our experiences with people that did that.
Yeah, and it always,
they were in the ozone layer.
It's like rubbing my teeth on a chalkboard. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the third one is encouraging journal writing in a passive, non-threatening way. This is something that I am not a passive-aggressive person. You might have noticed.
No, you're just an aggressive person.
I'm an aggressive person. I'm a very forward person. I have a hard time with passive. You skipped the passive
and just went straight for aggressive.
Yeah, I'm very aggressive. I'm out there. I'm blunt. I have a hard time with this. But this was something that I had to learn how to do. When I'm talking to someone, I just casually mention that I write in a journal. I casually mention I have a podcast. And if they're interested, like, oh, what kind of podcast? And then I can say something. Now, to me, that's very passive aggressive, and I don't like it. But I found that if I do it that way, people are more willing to listen.
That's more like saying it in passing.
Yes, now, but that's passive.
At least you're not being one of those people like, I'm very important, you know. I'm on a podcast. It's a very important podcast that does podcasty things with podcasty people. You should look into my podcast about this podcast.
Exactly.
They're in the same vein as idiots that go writing in a Starbucks just so that they can be seen writing.
Yes.
That's the same
by
thing.
Talking about your journal in passing, in a passive way, which is what in passing means, you write about what you wrote. You write about what your character did, and then they want to read your journal, so they go to read your journal, and after they read your journal, they're like, you know what? I think I want to do this, and so then they do it. It's a way of drawing people in without threatening them.
It's what happened with Sib. Since she's not here to tell the story, I will tell it for her, but better. But no, when we got together, and I showed her, she'd already played things like Halo, and she played console games. She was good at gaming, and she enjoyed it. But she had no idea like MMOs existed. And then on top of that, excuse me while I burp into the microphone, that on top of that, in MMOs, people played as the characters and role played. It was an entirely foreign concept to her. She didn't even know such a thing existed. It's like when you find out that underwater basket weaving may actually have been a thing at one point. It wasn't, but if you had found that out, it would be like that. But yeah. So when you say that like that, what you were just saying, and people are like, oh, well, that sounds mildly interesting. I'll take a look. And they take a look and like, so wait a minute. You're taking like an online game, I can be like Legolas, and then you're like, well, let's not go too far. You're already being one of the bad people. But you can be as if you were like Legolas, just don't call yourself that. And they're like, and it opens up, it's that third eye opening kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they didn't know existed. And a lot of people don't. Like with you.
I don't.
Like with you walking by your kids thinking they were slowly growing insane as they were talking as if they were someone else.
Well, actually, initially how I found out is because they started swearing, I'm going to kill you. Do you understand me? I'm going to take your head and cut it off. And I'm like, whoa. We're getting a little violent here.
Yeah.
You need to stop. This is PvP. You need to just, and they're like, Mom, we're RPing. Stop it. You broke it up. You're ruining my immersion.
You're my immersion, Mom.
I'm like, what did you just say? Are you kidding me? You're role playing? Yeah, Mom. I'm a 60-year-old wizard. I'm grumpy, okay?
And I curse, so you have to let it happen.
Yeah, and I was like, you still can't curse.
There, boy.
Yeah, and I walked away going, scritch, okay.
But no, and for you, it was that same moment. Like, I'll be damned.
Yeah.
My kids are doing the same thing I do, only different and out loud. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just bizarre for me.
Kids are weird.
Yeah. So, we've talked all about this. Now let's draw it all together.
Mm-hmm.
The third point, and last point, I promise, is what makes a good draw? What draws people in? A lot of people are like, I wouldn't know what to write even if I tried. Well, here's the deal. Story is to draw in anyone who role plays. You write a good story and people will come. Keep your entries short. I had to learn that.
Mm.
Less than a few pages of written text. The fewer pages, the better. Short and sweet keeps the young mind's attention these days. Number two.
For example, the how long with that thing you read earlier, Jess? How many pages was that?
3. It was way too long.
See? And mine was a page and a half.
Yeah. But in my defense, everything was spaced out, so it probably could have been squinched into
mine's
page and a half.
Mine's about a page and a half on Google Docs, which isn't always necessary. It's probably closer to 2 pages if you went off.
Yeah. I would say it's probably 2 pages if I squinched it together. I like to space things out and put.
But that's
like all the times I sighed and stuff were in brackets. So
right. Well,
you're supposed to be hearing her sigh and things. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is that right there, a page to 3 is typically if you go beyond that, because especially when you put it on a forum, and if the wall of text goes not just a little below the screen where they're, from top to bottom, but way below it, and it just keeps scrolling.
Paragraphs are a thing, folks. Use them.
Well, I mean, even with the like if they're scrolling down through your single post and it's, one flip of the little mouse thing, one other flip.
Flip,
if they keep going, it's intimidating to a lot. It really, I'm not insulting. I've actually had this happen to me. I'm speaking from experience. I'm looking at something like, God damn, I don't have time to read this right now. I'm going to have to get back to it. And then I don't, because I forget about it because I have the memory of a goldfish. But it can intimidate. But when you see, when you can see from top to bottom and then maybe it goes a little bit below the screen and you scroll down and like, oh, there's the end. Okay, I'll read that. I got time for that.
Yeah.
And
I've had, Straight has said that. How much did you write? I'm sitting here scrolling, so.
Just fucking War and Peace. Yeah.
Yeah. So I write, but then again, when they would say write a short story, I'd have to write an excerpt because I can't write short stories. So I write a long story, then I break it up into pieces so people are happy.
Which is, you chapter it, yeah. It's a good way of doing it. Even if you write like that, consider that, find a good spot where, a cliffhanger, for example, use the old thing from TV shows. Use a cliffhanger so that people will be like, ooh, what happens next? And when you post it again, they'll be like, I get to see what happens next.
Yes. Now, number 2, write descriptively. This is something that a lot of people struggle with, but everybody can do. This is the thing that I tell people. Imagine it's a scene in a movie. Describe the things that you see. What are they doing with their hands? Are they leaning back? Are they leaning forward? Does she put her hand through her hair at a nervous tick? Think about what you're watching. Talk about color. Talk about, not too much, like her long, silken,
don't go Tolkien
golden
with it.
Hair that fell, cascading like the fresh wheat on a long, hot day. What? Stop it. It's hair. Anyway, so don't do that. But
don't Tolkien it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get it. It's a fucking field with a bunch of midgets in it. We got it. Yeah. Move on. Yeah.
Include imagery and pictures where possible. Draw readers in the first few sentences. You literally have 2 to 3 sentences to grab their attention or they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
More so now than, and that's always been a rule. When you start a book, you have to, if people are going to open it up and read the first sentence, you have 2 to 3 sentences or they won't buy your book.
Yeah, that's one
of the... So you have to get the hook in there.
I still remember the Stephen King's Dark Tower series. Very first line. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. I was hooked. That's the first sentence. I was like, oh, I got it. It was simple. And even he's like, it's one of my best things I've ever written. I was right. He was right, because I totally was like, well, now I got to find out how this ended and started,
Right.
And you gotta, you really
You've got to get them in the first few minutes. I recommend to people, start off with an action, start off with an emotion, start off with something that people can connect to. Don't start off, it was a long, dark night.
or
the wind was blowing. People are just going to say nope and keep going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was that there's something I've been writing, something else. In the first thing is like, it was supposed to be this, it was supposed to be a simple snatch and grab. Why is it never just a simple snatch and grab? That kind, you got to draw people in.
Right, and like one of the journals that I write for Kariv, one of the background journals is one of the people in her life is writing about when she was young and when he came across her and what he thought. But the first thing he says at the beginning of each journal is, "I never intended for any of this." And then he goes and he starts talking.
Mm-hmm.
But you go, what? It's supposed to grab you and go, I wonder what he means.
Kind of, it's like those old 50, like, what was it? It's like Sin City,
Yeah.
It was never supposed to end like this. Why does it always end like this?
Right. And that's I forget what that's called. There's a name for it.
There's a word for it.
Starting, it's a hook, but it's a specific kind of hook. Okay. You want to get people in by saying, basically you're almost saying, this whole thing was never supposed to happen, and here's how it did. And you're summarizing in a way, and you're telling them it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
So when it comes to journal writing, in particular, you need to write often. This is something I suck at for my real life journal because I write in it a couple times a month. So I only have like 5 people that read my journal. Because nobody else has the patience to check back. Nope, she didn't write today. Nope, she didn't write today. Nope, she didn't. Nobody's going to do that. So when you're writing a journal for a character, you need to write often. I often will go and make notes, just in a text file, what I did that day with that character, so I can go back in the journal and write about it later. So even if I don't do it that day, I can still remember, because I have the mind of a guppy like you. I can't remember shit, so I have to write it down or I won't remember.
I'm not a guppy.
I have the most amazing journals on Kariv. I have gone back and reread them when I was getting ready to play the character.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of integrate myself with the character.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So much stuff happened with this character and I don't remember any of it. I was like, that happened? And I even asked Kenrick at one point, did I make all this shit up or did it actually? He goes, no, that was RP. It really happened.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So it's really important to write daily for your character, not only because it helps you stay in connection with your character, but it brings other people in. Even if they can't react on what's going on, they get to know your character. I had somebody say, I don't read journals because then I'll mix and I'll act like I really know it. And while I get that, you can just put in a disconnect there somewhere in your brain that tells you you're learning about this person. And if you were really seeing them every day, like you probably are,
yeah, that's...
if this was real life, you would pick up on all these subtle clues anyway.
Yeah, and that's how I've always taken. If I learn something from a journal, at least character-wise, I typically I don't like. I don't like. Oh well, I know your entire past and history because I saw it in your journal. But I use that as a form of. I see Sib every day. I know her ins and out. I know her eccentricities. I know when she's upset when she says she's fine. I know when she's fine when I think she's upset. Or maybe that she might have been upset. I get that just off of not even just unknown cues that I can pick up on that I wouldn't even be able to tell you. It's just feelings that I get. And
like when I wrote for Vodka,
you get those from those journals.
She did all this stuff in a journal and people couldn't act on it because it was her journal. But at the same time, people began to tell just in my regular role play. They were like, you know what? You can tell that she's full of shit. Mm-hmm. Now that I know she's full of shit, you really can tell. You're not really trying that hard to hide it. No, I'm not. As a person playing this character, I want you to understand she's mirror and shadows, and she is going to fool people. But at the same time, if you've known Vodka for as long as Rengots has, when she's blowing smoke up his ass, he's like, puff away, babe.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not fooling him because he's known her for so long. And Xanis was the same way. Mm-hmm. She would say, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And she was smooth.
Well,
and cool.
He'd been around women for more than 4 seconds.
Yeah, and he was like, no, you're not. Bullshit.
I'm fine. So should I sleep on the couch or just like outside? Where am I going?
So, writing often is very important. When it comes to profiles, update and fix and add little nuances to your story updates to your profile on a regular, weekly, or monthly basis. This is something a lot of people don't do. They make their profile and they never touch it again. Don't do that. Your character's going to grow and change. Or if it doesn't, you need help. Yeah. Your character's been around for 5 years. Don't keep saying she's 12. Don't keep saying she's 15. She's been 15 for 8 years. Really? No. She's aging. Act like it. So that's important for people to interact and to want to interact. And lastly, again, talk about your writing. Tell people, you should read this, or I mentioned your character in my journal, I hope that's okay. People love that. They eat it up like M&Ms. So they love it when you mention their character.
Yeah.
So tell people, I mentioned your character, I hope that's okay. There will be some people, by the way, that will make you remove it. And I honor that. If somebody doesn't want me mentioning the character, I will remove it. But at the same time, most of the time, people are like, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, those are the things, in my opinion, that will help people come back to forums, help people participate in what you're writing, particularly if you enjoy writing.
Yeah.
Keep at it, because I do believe that roleplay isn't dying, it's changing.
It's shifting. Well, and I know a lot of this sounds like it's really self-serving, which, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the point. But
well, it is. You're writing for your character. It's going to be a little
you write for your
self-serving.
character. You write in the hopes that other people will enjoy it the way you enjoy it. So there's a psychology to all this stuff. I was watching this video on video games, the psychology of video games, and how developers cheat. There's a big thing right now because of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice about, there needs to be an easy mode and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I read that, yeah.
But what's funny is there's already an easy mode in most games.
Yes.
The developers of of BioShock. I think it was in one of their games, the very first turret that you come across cannot hit you. It will fire bullets at you, and they are programmed to miss every single time. And the reason for that is they know that psychologically, if the first thing you come to, you're killed instantly or right off the bat because you don't know what you're doing, it's not fun. So it's meant to miss, you're meant to kill it, and it builds up that confidence. There's also
easy mode is always, the tutorial is always stupidly easy.
And then there's like Doom. Doom actually has a thing, which, Doom's known for being hardcore and fast-paced. When you get down to that last little bit where it looks like you have a sliver of life, there's actually another 10% behind that, and or 2 seconds of invulnerability, so that when you make that sudden, like, kill that last couple things that were killing you and you survive, you get that rush of like, yeah, I made it. That stuff is programmed in, and for writing, it's literally kind of the same thing. You got to hook people, you got to get them interested, and if you want to expand on your character and you want to expand your, in entertainment value for your friends, which is why we do all of this, is for entertainment. And if you're not doing it for entertainment, why are you hating?
Why are you doing
so much?
It? Yeah,
right. So and it's not about the most clicks, it's not about the most likes and readers and this and that, but it is about spreading the information of your character and spreading hopefully the entertainment and joy value that you get out of that with other people. And if you don't know, I don't mean to say it like this is talking down to you, but if you don't know the basics, or a lot of people don't even think of this stuff because you're normal. I mean, really, most people wouldn't. We do it. I think of this crap all the time because of the podcast here, because I've been doing this for so long. It's Jazz for the same reason. Yunfei, because she unfortunately has to keep muting herself because for some reason we keep picking up on her mic, and I'm so sorry that you have to keep doing that.
My cat. Well, it's the mic, and my cat is going mental.
Oh, is it Tuna?
Yep.
Where's my Tuna girl? She loves me. She sits on my lap. She's my good girl. But because of all that stuff, you really, if you want to get people to read it and you want to grow, especially if you want criticism, it's hard to get a critique. If you want to get a critique, they're much different than criticism.
I had to explain the other day to someone, criticism is not critiquing. Critiquing is not criticism. They're similar, but
they both start with the same letters.
Constructive.
Right. So if you want a critique of your writing so that you can get better and you've got the chops and you're able to not be upset, you can't even get a critique if you can't get people to read it because they stopped after the first thing, and the only critique you're going to get is, I couldn't even start it. Sorry. So,
right.
And that's the only way you grow as a writer and a role player as well.
Exactly. You have to be read. You have to have people say, I liked it or I didn't, and not get upset when people didn't like it, because not everybody's going to like what you write. And so it's very important to keep people involved and to get people involved. You have to talk about it. You have to encourage people. You have to link your profile and your writing and talk to people about that and say, I do this and I do that. I work in social work, and they look at me like I grew a third leg when I start talking about role play, because most of them have never heard of it. And they're like, so you play pretend?
Yeah. They're probably people probably around your age, right? I mean,
a lot of the people that I work with are, the other workers like me I'm talking about, right, that I talk about my hobby. The young people that I work with, a lot of them are like, oh, I've heard of that. It's cool.
They get that. Yeah.
But people my age and older who haven't, they're like, so you're in theater? Well, sort of. It's just there's no theater. It's all online.
But this has nothing to do with that.
So you role play on Facebook? No, I role play in MMOs. So yeah, it's really hard for them to wrap their head around it.
That's actually kind of like pat the puppy on the head, kind of cute.
Yeah, it was just like, no, it's an MMO. What's an MMO? WoW. You role play in WoW? Well, no, I role play in a different game, but it's like WoW. And you just see their head explode. They just can't even.
There's more than one?
There's more. There's games like WoW? Yes.
Yeah.
Are they any fun? Yes.
But wasn't that the first MMO? Oh my God, I'm done talking to you.
I know.
I've got a podcast episode for you. You need to listen to it.
But I mean, it's like when people tell me that they don't understand what I'm doing, and I'll say, well, theater does this. or when you get home, you turn on the TV. When I get home, I turn on my computer and I play an MMO.
Yeah.
You watch TV. There's no difference. It's the same thing. It's just stories.
Yeah, you sit there and you'll watch a sports game for 3 or 4 hours. I'll sit there and talk to other people as a made-up character for 3 or 4 hours. We both get a different level of entertainment out of it, but it's still, at the end of the day, entertainment.
And I actually made a connection with one of my coworkers because she's like, wait, do you dress up in armor and run around and pretend you're a knight?
No, we don't talk to those people.
I said,
no.
Close. You're getting closer.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's in a video game.
Those are LARPers.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's way more expensive of hobby than mine is.
Yes, way more. So, in short, reading and writing are a key to creativity, no matter where it's at, whether it's on paper or it's in technology. So expand your mind, look into new kinds of forums or journals or whatever you're into, and on ideas of how to teach young people and young RPers how to do it. Because if you're our age and you're doing it, and you're like, young people don't care. It's not that they don't care. They don't understand. And you need to explain to them what you do or why you do it. And I think that part of the reason that we've lost roleplay in many ways, one, the devs could care less and are actively trying to kill us. And two, the young people don't understand. So help them understand. Like that one meme I just read the other day, he said, my son was sitting watching somebody playing a video game. And he said, son, if you love that game so much, why don't you just play it yourself? He says, you sit and watch football. Why don't you go play it yourself?
Boom. Got him.
Actually,
and I was like,
pretty good point,
now that's a good point right there. So it's just a new way of looking at things.
Although I will say there is a difference between if you're watching a professional League of Legends or Fortnite thing, I can get that. It's like watching NFL. However, watching somebody play a game like BioShock, for example, that I can easily do myself, I still don't get that.
Okay. To be fair, though, I watched Bear Taffy go through the Walking Dead, the Telltale Games one.
That's a lot like a TV show, though.
I'm really glad I did, because if I had played it, there were at least 2 scenes in that where I would have put the controller down and just been like, no, I'm done.
And honestly, that one too, because it was that one, Jazz, you know what that one is?
I don't watch anything with zombies in it, so I have no idea what you're
this was a
talking
game.
about.
It's from Telltale Games, which they were a very narrative-focused video game. You made certain choices, like at one point, and it's been out for years, so I don't care if you've not played it by now.
What's it called?
It's The Walking Dead. Telltale Games, The Walking Dead.
Yeah, see, I would never watch it.
Right, but they also have another one, actually one that you would like, one that's based off of fairy tale creatures, and you play as the big bad wolf who's a sheriff. That one I think you would love, but I
think I've actually seen that advertised.
They have one for Batman. They did Guardians of the Galaxies and Borderlands. They did a whole bunch of these
Minecraft
things.
one, I think.
Minecraft, but the Walking Dead one was good because you, like at one point, you had a choice to save one, pull a tractor off a little guy or save a little girl, and whichever one you don't pick, they're gonna die, and they're gonna die gruesomely. Is that one of the ones where you were like, I couldn't have done that?
There's one point, this is one of the points I would have stopped, and I'm going to go ahead and say gigantic spoiler, guys. So, close your ears
played the 5-year-old or the 5 to 7-year-old game by now, you're out of luck.
One of the little boy gets bit, and you have to make the decision of what to do. And when you make that decision, like in Bear Taffy's case, he made the decision to shoot the kid.
Uh-huh.
And when he made that decision, not only did it make the player make that decision, it makes you pull the trigger.
Yes. Yeah, you actually literally.
Oh my god! No.
It took. I've never seen. And Bear Taffy's a big dude. Like he's like football
named
player
Bear
big.
Taffy. Who would have thought?
Yeah, and he did it, and then like he had his face cam on, and he had to stop. He had to pause the game and be like, guys, I need a minute. I'll be right back. And like everyone in chat was crying. Like we were so invested in this.
Well, and it was, for one, they made a great narrative, and two, the choices mattered, which is another thing you need to do in your role play. But that is absolutely when I did the exact same thing. I did several of those games, and there were some of the choices that were so heartbreaking, and it's like I'm the fucking monster that had to decide that. But literally, even though it's when you see those characters in TV shows, and you know the right thing to do is end their suffering, but at the same point, you know it's awful. It's a horrible decision, and you don't want to be the one to have made it. Yeah, they make you make that, and then they make you pull the trigger and blow the little kid's head off because he's going to turn into a zombie monster. And yeah, and so stuff like when you if you can write something compelling, compelling like that, and you are able to include
the reader
people,
feel like they're pulling the trigger.
Reader feel, yeah.
And I had some things that happened with Vodka that were heart-wrenching. And I had people quite invested in reading how she really took it, because she was just like ice through the whole thing. And then, as Xanis knows, she went home and just came
unglued.
Completely unglued. But like, I've had roleplay that was just heart-wrenching. And and they're like, well, isn't it mixing if you cry? Well, no. You're watching this terrible thing happen to this character, and it's ripping them apart. Why wouldn't you be like, oh, you poor thing? Like, and I feel bad because the dice make me do things.
It's like saying, oh, isn't that mixing when they shot Lassie, or not Lassie, but Old Yeller? No, I was attached to the dog, and it was a good story. Or Harry Potter, or, the Avengers movies, or Game of Thrones, if it was, they kill them off hands,
right.
Right.
But like still. The other day in Tor, because we're re-upping all these stories, John is her son, and she had him when she was a very young girl, and he was taken away and raised by a monster. And eventually she kills that monster and gets him back as an adult, and he hates her because he's been raised to hate her. And they patched up their relationship before I left the game, but he's had, I guess in game it's been like 7 or 8 years, because you have the 5 years you're in stasis and all that stuff. So it's been a while, and he came and found her and said, you skipped out on the war, you were hiding, I hate you. And he was very angry, and my character was melting because she loves her son. And she's like, you don't understand, and it was very heart-wrenching. And he was like, I feel 3 inches right now. 3 inches tall. I can't believe he's doing this to her. But it was what his character would do.
Yeah.
And, people, I think if people watch it, they don't understand. Because they're like, why would you do that to your character then? Well, because that's the story.
Yeah.
Gotta follow it through.
Yeah, and that's what makes things compelling. If you Mary Sue everything, nothing is fun. If you come out of everything unscathed, that's one of the problems that the new for example, take the new Star Wars lines with Rey and stuff like that. She's not really going through a ton of hardship to gain all this power and strength. There's no struggle. It took Luke from episode 4 to episode 5 on Hoth. When they ended the Wookiees and all that, and they gave everyone but the Wookiee witch, rest in peace, Peter Mayhew. He was a great guy. I'll have something to say at the end. To Hoth, when he gets taken by the Wampa, that was a 4-year period, and he still struggled to pull the lightsaber out of like a snowdrift.
Right, and then she's just like, snap!
It's been like 2 movies and they didn't have any time between them, and now she's using the mind trick and just all this stuff. And there's no growth to the character. It just all came to her. And it's not.
There's a lot of people that play that out in their role play. And I think they don't understand why I'm just like snorting at them.
Yeah, or why it's not. Why you're not invested or compelled to be like, wow, that was amazing.
They just snap their fingers or well, she's just going to do this, and she's poof, and it's just like, that's not fun.
No.
Well, it's fun for me. How is it fun for you? There's no challenge.
There's no growth. It was just.
There's no growth. You didn't learn anything. You're still,
You just asked the genie for a wish, and it happened. Yeah.
He's a part dragon, and you just add another part every time that your character goes through something, and it doesn't. You have to work it out, and that's probably part of the reason, in my opinion, why roleplay has stumbled to some degree, is because we're surrounded by all these people who just want to anime everything, and Naruto
And
super
even that,
duper-
to be honest with you, even that they're not doing it right because we'll use your thing, what you just said with Naruto. That's the first one. That's not even counting Shippuden, which is each one of those is nearly 200 episodes each, so 400 episodes.
True.
And the character that starts out in the very first episode, he's a troublemaking little shit. He defaces the Hokage face statue. It's like their Lincoln, their Mount Rushmore monument to the former leaders. He's spray painted all over it, and he can barely do anything. And by the time you get to the end, yeah, he can summon all sorts of stuff. He can, beat the best ninjas. But it took him 200 episodes to get there. And like some of the early ones, he's getting his ass whooped. And one of the others actually ends up being the one that saves the day.
I know, I'm too hard on that stuff.
But you're right, because that's what they're going off of. But they're not going... They're going...
They don't want to take the time to do it.
They skip to the end, and they don't do what made Naruto, outside of the filler, they don't do what made it good, which was him getting better and learning new techniques, his struggle with his rival Sasuke, like in Sakura always hanging off them, and then when his rival goes bad and actually goes with the bad guys, he leaves their team for a long time. He's and does a lot of bad things, and then he gets a redemption story. There's a lot of story and character development in there, and yet they skip all that because obviously I'm a fan. I know my anime. But they skip all that and go straight to the end. And
my husband said the same thing about Naruto.
They missed the point. Yeah, they missed the point.
But it's because I have to deal with these people who, rather than, like for example, in EQ2, we had this girl who was playing a human and wanted to become a werewolf and did without any real story development. And then, so she's a super secret half werewolf, half vampire thing. And then she just decided that as a human, she was suddenly going to become a dark elf. You might remember this. You might remember this chick. She suddenly became a dark elf, was like, it's a super secret magical ritual, and it turned me into a dark elf. But sometimes I can still be human. And and I had to sit her down, and I'm like, that is the most Mary Sue thing I have ever seen in my life, and I'm not going to allow you to stay in the guild. Now, I'm not like that anymore, because at this point I just roll my eyes and nod and smile and say, okay, Mary Sue, have fun with that. I don't care anymore, because I've hit my head on that wall so many times that it's just not worth the stress on me to try to explain to someone why instant, super secret, absolutely magical change that only the dragons know, and I know it because he's my friend. And what?
Yeah.
Rather than make another character that was a dark elf, she just decided she wanted to be a dark elf, so she just made her character dark elf and then just made up something super secret ritual that made her into a dark elf, but she was still a half vampire, half werewolf human when she wanted to be.
Yeah. And
after you've been doing this long enough and reading this stuff because she also wrote a journal, so was, I can't fault her for that. She wrote a lot. It was not bad stuff. She was a good writer.
Right.
But she wasn't following lore in any way, shape, or form. And it was really, really hard for me because I just wanted to strangle her most of the time. Because if she would have put that effort into being lore-based, she would have been fantastic. So now I just roll my eyes a lot. You have to admit, you've come a long way too. We're all so much more mellow than we were back then.
Oh yeah, I was
we're
very
just like,
invested.
they're like, I am a Dramora masquerading as a half dragon, our Altmer, and I know the secrets to life. Okay,
I have 5 of the Elder Scrolls in my back pocket right now. I just didn't want to tell you.
Sure you do. Okay.
Seriously, I use one of the Elder Scrolls. I just use it as a paperweight. So,
and I think for Strafe, that's been hard because he's like, why do you let these people get in your guild? And I'm like, because I just don't care.
Yeah.
If that's their role play and that's what they want to do, and they're perfectly comfortable with the fact that my character thinks they're bug fuck nuts, fine.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore.
And that's when you just smile and say, well, congratulations, you beat the game.
Yep. You win, the internet.
You win! Yay! Yep. Oh, moving on.
Good job.
Yeah. But no, it's all that stuff just it is a shame, and that it
But
was.
I do think it's worn people down
Mm-hmm.
to where, like me, I mean, let's be honest, it wore me down to where I don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
Like, sure, why not? Go for it. And I think that has cheapened roleplay to some degree.
Yeah, a little bit.
And since nobody's writing, something's missing, and that's why it's petering off to some degree, I think.
Yeah, well, and it does it. The writing always gives it an extra layer of depth. It lets them know their
Yes.
character out. You to write something without bouncing it off of somebody.
Yeah.
Is you have to think more and deeper on it. And if you are not doing that, then your character may very well stay very two-dimensional. Now, that's not saying it will happen like that every time. If you're thinking about it a lot off screen and you know in your off time where you're at work and things like that, you can do certain things, but at the same time, if you don't then write that down, it may get lost because I mean, we've had show topic ideas here, and every one of us have been like, I had this great idea today, didn't write it down. I've got no idea what it was, but it was really good. And then we have no idea if we ever get back to it or not, you know? It's just, who knows?
It's because they usually come at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, or when
I'm
you're
trying
like,
to sleep.
or, you know, you're in the car, or, you know, you're in the middle of the grocery store, like, oh, that'd be a really good show idea. I'll remember that later. No, you won't. No, you won't. So, no, it's good stuff, Jess. Good stuff.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to share one thing real quick here at the end before we kick off, because as I'm sure everybody has heard, Peter Mayhew,
Yes.
Chewbacca, passed away this week, a couple days ago. I actually, and I'm not saying this as bragging because he was such a great guy, I actually had the privilege of not once but twice with our local Star Wars group here in Tulsa, taking him and his wife, and one time Jeremy Bullock, who is the original Boba Fett, out to dinner after Trek Expo.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
we took
awesome.
him out, and he was everything he looks like he is, and everything you've possibly heard. He was funny. He was kind-hearted. He was the nicest, soft-spoken guy. The stories he told about Star Wars were just, they were fun. They were funny. The best one, though, was when he talked, and he told the story to us how he met his wife, I think it's Angelique, back in 1999. So they'd been married 20 years this year, which having met her, my heart absolutely breaks for this woman, because they were in love like you see very rarely in two people, especially meeting as late in life as they did. They just, the way he spoke about meeting her, he told the story with tears in his eyes, and this is probably 5 years after they'd been married, because it was probably around 2003, 2004, and they were married in 99, so 3, 4, or 5 years. And it was just the most amazing. It was a great experience. Obviously, he's not doing anything at a convention after hours. He's not signing autographs. We didn't, he had this jacket that a fan made him. That was it was a jean jacket with Chewbacca like playing a drum solo, and something like that's how the Wookiee rolls or something like that. It was just ludicrous, but it was fan made, fan painted, hand by hand, looked amazing, and he was wearing it. Yeah, he absolutely loved the people around him. He loved his fans. He loved what he did after Star Wars. He was just one of the best people. He was what everything you would want to think somebody that you would look up to and would be like. And he was all about the fans. He was just such a good guy. And it really broke my heart just to see that. And, prayers to his wife and his family, so that they can get through this, because I know how much they loved each other. I mean, I saw it firsthand, not once, but twice, years apart. And Jeremy Bullock, by the way, really cool guy. He's nice too, but this is more about Peter. So, and I'd see him at conventions plenty of times after that, and they would always lug this like recliner chair, because his legs were bad, his back was bad. I mean, guy was, I think it was 7'2", 7'4".
Yeah.
I can't remember.
I remember that. He had a lot of back problems.
He's 7'3" at his tallest. So anybody that tall, they have a lot of problems. So every convention you'd see him in his recliner, they're signing, always with a smile on his face. So it's a shame. He had a good life, though. Really impacted a lot of people. We could only hope to have had the impact someone like him has had on probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people's lives. And that's just in person. So we'll miss him. He's a good guy, and it's a real bummer, but he left I like to think he's one of those people that left the world a better place than he first found it, just with his presence. So that's all I got to say to that. It's sappy, but when you meet somebody, like
you
that,
met him. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm not like, we were personal friends. We're calling, but we spent 2 hours with him personally with our friends, 2 separate times. And you can't not be who you are in that length of time, especially when you're all eating together. And he did like his steak, I will say. He was a meat eater. But God rest him. Hope his family, is able to carry on without him. But that's all I got to say on that. So, anybody else have anything else before we head on out?
I have beat that dead horse. We're done.
You beat that horse to death? All right. Let's see here.
TLDR. Learn to write.
Yes.
Get good, scrub. So. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. RPMMORadio, our 86th episode. I don't know why I always wanted to give 6 and second. I guess they both start with an S. I'll go with it. So appreciate that. Remember, twitch.tv/RPMMORadio. Go ahead and follow us there. Subscribe if you want to. If you got one of those free Amazon thingy-majiggers, feel free to throw it our way. That's awesome. I of course, want to thank my crew, Jazz and Yunfei, for showing up tonight. I, of course, am Ashen Phoenix. And remember to tune in next week when we'll go over why halflings shouldn't write because it comes a long, boring book that nobody should read. There and back again. I'm just letting it sink in for a moment that I hate that book. That's it. That's all I've got. So, all right. Remember that next time on RPM Radio. Good night, everybody. The thoughts and opinions of those on RPMMO Radio are just that and should not be taken as the gospel truth, but pretty close to it. Music, as always, is provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great video game rock covers and original music.